U.S. Border Patrol is monitoring millions of American drivers nationwide in a secretive program to identify and detain people whose travel patterns it considers to be suspicious. The Associated Press reports that U.S. Border Patrol is monitoring millions of American drivers nationwide, all in a secretive program to identify and detain people whose travel patterns it considers to be suspicious. The AI-powered predictive intelligence program has resulted in people being stopped, searched, and in some cases, arrested. Here's what the AP writes, quote, a network of cameras scans and records vehicle license plate information, and an algorithm flags vehicles deemed suspicious based on where they came from, where they were going, and which route they took. Federal agents, in turn, may then flag local law enforcement, end quote. Suddenly, drivers find themselves pulled over, often for reasons cited such as speeding, failure to signal, the wrong window tint, or even a dangling air freshener that's blocking their view. They are then aggressively questioned and searched with no inkling that the roads that they drive on will actually put them on law enforcement's radar. Scope of government overreach in this program, well, it's mind-boggling. The AP writes, quote, once limited to policing the nation's boundaries, Border Patrol has built a surveillance system stretching into the country's interior that can monitor ordinary Americans' daily actions and connections for anomalies instead of simply targeting wanted suspects. Started about a decade ago to fight illegal border-related activities and the trafficking of both drugs and people, it has expanded over the past 5 years, end quote. Border Patrol, well, they have recently grown even more powerful through collaborations with other agencies, drawing information from license plate readers nationwide that are run by the Drug Enforcement Administration. And then you add in the private companies and, of course, local law enforcement programs that are funded through, you guessed it, federal grants. Texas law enforcement agencies, well, they have asked Border Patrol to use facial recognition to identify drivers. That's according to documents reviewed by the AP. This active role beyond the borders, well, is part of the quiet transformation of its parent agency, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, into something more akin to a domestic intelligence operation. Under the Trump administration's heightened immigration enforcement efforts, CBP, well, they're now poised to get more than $2.7 billion to build out border surveillance systems, such as the license plate reader programs that then are layered with artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies. The AP, they concluded, quote, the result is a mass surveillance network with a particularly American focus, cars, end quote. Federal prosecutors have uncovered multiple fraud schemes involving Somali immigrants in Minnesota. And they have siphoned off, according to reports, billions of dollars in taxpayer money from food, welfare, and autism safety net programs, and even routed some to overseas terrorists. The scandal, it was uncovered by acting U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson in Minneapolis. And it has handed Republicans a political club heading into the 2026 election to bash liberals like Governor Tim Walz for creating a welfare state with little or no safeguards, and now countless victims of fraud. The dragnet, it has already resulted in 77 indictments for fraud against a food welfare program called Feeding Our Future, as well as a medical professional who was prosecuted, allegedly, who falsely diagnosed Somali children in order to steal $14 million from a federal autism assistance program. Representative Brad Feinstad, he's a Republican from Minnesota, he told Just the News this week, quote, these are things that, if well used, is a good way to help our families and our friends, kind of with the hand up to continue to climb the American dream ladder. But it was completely squandered, completely mismanaged. The Democrats were a complete failure, end quote. And then he added, quote, and quite frankly, you almost wonder if they're just compliant in this. And they knew what was going on. How they sit back with a blind eye to this is beyond negligence. It is criminal, end quote. Federal authorities say the fraud across multiple programs in Minnesota alone now totals in the billions of dollars, and it continues to grow. And last week, officials told Congress that some of the money was siphoned away by Somali immigrants and made its way to Kenya and Somalia, to the al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group Al-Shabaab. The scale of fraud inside the Somali community in Minnesota, it is so large that it is now commanding attention by national figures, including House Speaker Mike Johnson. Quote, millions in stolen Minnesota welfare dollars have been funded to Al-Shabaab, an ISIS-aligned terror group, end quote. That's what Johnson wrote on X this weekend. President Donald Trump, he also weighed in on Saturday, revoking a special temporary protective status for Somalis in Minnesota and decrying the level of fraud that the community has caused in that state of Minnesota. It's unclear how the repealing of the temporary protection status will actually play out, since the wording was vague and it seemed to apply only to Somalis in Minnesota. There are large, indeed, Somali enclaves, not only in Minnesota, but in Maine, Ohio, the Dakotas, Georgia, and then Washington State. If the Minnesota Somalis up and move to one of those other states, well, will they be exempt from deportation? That question did not get answered. Here is his full statement, which is all about Minnesota. Quote, Minnesota under Governor Walz is a hub of fraudulent money laundering activity. I am, as President of the United States, hereby terminating, effective immediately, the temporary protected status for Somalis in Minnesota. Somali gangs are terrorizing the people of that great state, and billions of dollars are missing. Send them back to where they came from. It's over, end quote. So, while it may sound good, we need more details before we can actually issue a verdict on President Trump's Somali policy. We'll, of course, continue to track this story. Would you like to gain access to 36 years of Christian worldview programming, news and information, all my books, ebooks, documentaries, and more? Worldviewtube.com/vault. Worldviewtube.com/vault. Understand the times, where we've been and where we're going. Worldviewtube.com/vault. As many of you already know, Georgia GOP Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene announced Friday night that she was resigning from Congress effective January 5th. She cited her parting of the ways with President Trump and her frustration with the corruption of official Washington. A reporter asked President Trump if he would be willing to work it out with MTG as he did with Elon Musk and even Zohran Mamdani. Here's what he said, quote, sure, why not? I get along with everybody, end quote. Watch the video.
Before you had a fight with Elon Musk and you guys were able to work it out.
No, I get along with everybody.
We see the same thing happening between you and some of the...
Sure, why not? I mean, I get along with everybody.
House Speaker Mike Johnson told Fox News on Sunday that he had a, quote, thoughtful conversation, end quote, with Greene to sort out issues, adding that he, quote, offered to have her come in the room and be part of that discussion if indeed she wants to do that, end quote. Well, I don't believe that will happen. Time magazine, they ran an article saying MTG resigned so she could run full-time for president in 2028. She hit back at the publication on Sunday night with a fiery post to X that said, quote, Time claims sources told them I'm running for president in 2028, which means this is a complete lie. And they made it up because they can't even quote the names of the people who they claim said it. That's not journalism. It's called lying. I'm not running for president and never said I wanted to and have only laughed about it when anyone would mention it, end quote. And then she added, quote, if you fell for those headlines, you're still being lulled every day into psychosis by the political industrial complex that always has an agenda when it does something like this. Running for president requires traveling all over the country, begging for donations all day, every day to raise hundreds of millions of dollars, arguing political talking points every day to the point of exhaustion, destroying your health, and having no personal life in order to attempt to get enough votes to become president, all to go to work into a system that refuses to fix any of America's problems, end quote.